Hello, it's Book Quote Wednesday and the word is change. Today I'm reading from my story collection, JEAPES JAPES, and the story in question is called Getting Rid of Teddy. Elizabeth comes from a psychically gifted family, though she never had any ability herself, and having become an evangelical Christian to escape the family, she is convinced the power is witchcraft. But DNA has a habit of popping up traits in later generations, and she's having to face the fact that her 4-year-old son, Colin, is extremely gifted, and he is using his teddy bear the way a witch might use a familiar. The boys were chasing each other around the park over the damp grass, squealing happily at the top of their voices. The idea of the game seemed to be that they should play tag and Colin should chase Adam, but when she caught him it didn't actually count. Colin didn't seem to mind. Teddy was safely back at home. Colin always asked if Teddy could come when they went out, and permission was always refused. Elizabeth didn't think she could stand the result if Teddy got dropped in a muddy puddle. Elizabeth sat on one of the park benches. She watched the man sitting at the other end of the bench throw a stick for his dog, a red setter. The dog bounded after it, ears and tail flapping. "The moon shines brightly over Moscow," the man said ominously. He had a pleasant face and was slightly taller and slightly younger than her. "I'm on to you, Bill," Elizabeth said. "Well, and hello to you too, big sis," the man said. The dog trotted up to them with a stick in its mouth. It dropped the stick at Elizabeth's feet and barked expectantly. "Hey, Gormless, how am I meant to have a clandestine rendezvous when you go and give it away?" Bill shouted. "Oh, Bill, please," Elizabeth said. The man looked at her and grinned. How she loved that grin. Bill alone of the family had known just how unhappy she had been. To be in the family and not possess the craft, not to the slightest degree. Worse than that, to be the eldest child, the heir apparent to a line unbroken for centuries, and be craftless. Bill had never had any problems that way, but he had empathy and was the closest to her in age. Grandma had never understood, and her bad temper and belief in the supernatural had scared Elizabeth witless. It didn't help that things actually did go bump in the night in their household. She had fled as soon as she could and been disinherited as a result. To compound her crime, she had married a Christian. She had met Michael at college, and his faith had attracted her right from the start. Here was she, timid and riddled with superstition, and there was he, secure and confident in the protection of his God before whom all other powers trembled. It was no contest, and she had embraced that protection willingly. Bill had been the only one of her relatives to come to the wedding, and he had had to lie about his whereabouts that day to the rest of the family. And he had promised. He had been unwilling, he had made no secret of his disagreement, but he had promised that her children would never learn about the craft from him. "Well, you started it," he said. "Meet me in the park, the bench by the bandstand. Very John le Carré. When do we feed the ducks?" Elizabeth stuck to her agenda. "Bill, don't you remember the agreement? How could you do it?" Bill looked at her blankly. "Could I what?" "You gave Teddy to Colin." Bill frowned, trying to remember. "Oh, that. Well, yes, so what? Isn't an uncle allowed to be nice to his nephews? How does giving teddy bears constitute teaching the boys about the craft?" He paused, thinking. "Besides, I gave one to Adam as well, when he was small." "I know. He shoots his air rifle at it." "Really?" Bill grinned widely. "That's my boy." "My boy. But," for the first time Elizabeth began to doubt, "it doesn't bother you?" Excuse me. "Of course not." Now Bill was frowning again. "Look, sis, what is it?" Elizabeth paused, suddenly feeling foolish. Maybe... No, how could she have thought it of her brother? Of course Teddy wasn't a Trojan horse for the craft. Teddy had been an innocent present from a loving uncle. "How are you, Bill?" she said, changing the subject. Bill's expression indicated that he intended to return to the subject in due course, but for now he let her get away with it. "Me? I'm trying to be good. I blotted my copybook in a big way." "As much as me," Elizabeth said ironically. "No way. But I've been doing the rounds, you see, trying to get some research going, like Edinburgh has quite a neat little parapsychology department, for instance, and Grandma flipped her lid when I approached them. She still insists the craft is boring old magic, but I recanted." He looked suitably repentant. "Fortunately, the old bat hasn't grasped the idea of PO boxes yet, and I've had quite a neat little correspondence going. So as soon as she snaps it, sis, as soon as and I'm in charge, things will change drastically. The S word will be mentioned under our roof with impunity, and you'll be welcome back. The S word? Science, Bill said dramatically. Meanwhile, sis, how's the enemy camp? It's, I still find it different, but I'm happy, Bill, very happy. The lads look happy too. They are. Bill's dog put his head on Elizabeth's lap and looked up at her hopefully. She ruffled his ears for him without thinking, then remembered and recoiled. Is this your latest? Yeah, he's great, Bill said warmly. Old Grey Malkin. Bill! Sorry, did I say Grey Malkin? I meant Rufus. He's the best yet, just watch. Hey, stupid, look, stick, fetch! The stick had been lying at his feet. Before Rufus's gaze it rose slowly into the air and then suddenly flew off. Rufus bounded after it. I'm impressed, Elizabeth said without putting her heart into it. It's all a matter of love, sis. I love Rufus like no other, so he works extra well for me. Bill looked at her askance, shaking his head. Still don't like it, do you? The church says it's wrong, Elizabeth said dogmatically. It's satanic. I know a lot of witches and a couple of Satanists who would take exception to that. Oh, Bill, does a familiar have to be an animal? There was such strain in her voice that Bill looked at her oddly. This isn't hypothetical, is it? No, it isn't. Uh-huh. Well, I've never known one that isn't, sis. Why do you... A look of revelation dawned like a sunrise on Bill's face as suddenly everything fell into place. Not Teddy. Right. Bill whistled. Well, who would have thought it? Tell me more, sis. So Elizabeth told him. I mean, I've always carefully kept the house free of pets. I'm not stupid, but... And she told him all about Teddy, everything that she knew. I mean, Colin knows things and can do things, and the other day... She described the scene in the living room with the two boys. Bill seemed awestruck. And he uses his teddy bear to focus? Wowee, that little boy's got it bad. But talking to him? You could seem that way to a 4-year-old. Sometimes I could swear Rufus talks to me, but it's just my own thoughts bouncing off him. So how did it happen? How? Bill shrugged. Who does Colin love more than anything, sis? He saw the answer in her face. And I know it ought to be an animal because it's all it has been, but... He shrugged again. I think kids act on the bumblebee principle. If no one tells them it's impossible, they don't realise they can't do it. And from the sound of it, you know, I think little Colin could wipe the floor with Grandma when he's older. He looked thoughtfully over at the playing boys, and Elizabeth knew he wasn't just studying them with his eyes. Maybe he's the one who'll finally make us respectable and get the world to accept psionics as a scientific fact. So what can I do? Elizabeth said in desperation. Easy. Tell Michael everything. Tell him that as well as the hair and the eyes that he's got of you, Colin has inherited a perfectly natural paranormal power. No. I know Michael. I love him deeply, but he'll never accept it that his son is like he knows my mother was. Like he knows you are. Then the answer is obvious, Bill said slowly. Get rid of Teddy. Elizabeth finally decided. I will, she said. It's the only thing I can do. Bill shook his head, looking at the boys again. It won't do you a bit of good, you know. Not if he's as powerful as I think. He'll find something else. And I'll stop him, Elizabeth snapped. Bill, get this into your head. I will not let my boy grow up as a witch. The tension between them, which had begun to thaw as they spoke, was now crystallized in the air around them. They were on opposite sides of a vast gulf and always would be. As he will, Bill said tonelessly. But in 14 years' time he'll be an adult, and if he asks, I'll do everything I can to help him. His face promptly lost its seriousness, which it never held for more than a few seconds, and he passed her a folded banknote. Here, sis, buy the boys an ice cream or two from the Uncle William, will you? So how do you get rid of your child's teddy without him noticing? Well, that's the next challenge Elizabeth has to overcome. Remember, you can buy my books at www.benjeapes.com. See you next time.